Hello and welcome to a special edition of the GX Customer Councils. GX Customer Councils is an initiative under GX, which is a framework of global collaboration that was created by the Emirates Government Services Excellence Program at the Prime Minister's Office of the UAE. The aim of this collaboration is to unite government decision makers and global practitioners and innovators to redefine and reimagine how government experiences should be delivered in the present and the future. The GX Customer Councils is a platform that facilitates communication between the federal government and customers in the country. The aim of this program focuses on creating and collecting customers' views through focus groups, surveys, and discussions, with the objective of exploring new ideas on how government services can be improved and how can we provide optimal experiences. And that's the topic for our session today, which is, what can we learn from digital experiences in this new normal? And more importantly, answering the question, are governments ready? And to help me through this discussion, we have an amazing panel that's joined me today. We have Majid Madhloum, Head of the Center of Digital Innovation, Telecommunications and Digital Government Regulatory Authority. We have Yousuf AlShaiba, Digital Transformation and AI Advisor to the Chairman of Ajman Municipality. We have Tarek Hassaniyeh, Vice President, Middle East, Africa and Asia Pacific for Qmatic. And we have Saeed Alnofeli, Director of In5. I'm going to have each of my panel members introduce themselves as we get into the discussion as well. But let me start by setting the context for why this topic is such an important topic. So 2020 was significant in the context of how services are consumed and delivered, right? And there's three things that really happened if you want to understand the reason behind this. Number one, a lot of new services were introduced. There were pivots, there were services that did not exist in the digital world that now do exist. But more importantly, the experience got significantly better as well. So for some brands, some organizations that really seized the opportunity, they not just digitized what exists today, but they fundamentally reimagined the services and the experience. And then finally, this transition to digital by default or digital first, which doesn't mean to say that traditional channels don't have the same level of importance, but this notion of a mindset of digital by default actually has become the new norm. Now, what does this do? I think there's three things, right? So there's an accelerated adoption of digital that's really happened over the last 18 months. There's new digital habits that have been formed, and all of us have these new habits that did not exist 18 months ago, and that's here to stay, that's not going to go away. Yes, there will be in-person and hybrid interactions, but there's a new set of digital habits that all of us will be left behind with. And because we've been exposed to experiences by some amazing brands out there, there are higher expectations of what we expect in the digital world. So a combination of these three factors is actually making either our lives and jobs a lot harder, or as the way I like to see it is a significant opportunity for not just governments, but pretty much every business across sectors to seize this. I'm just spending a few minutes to outline what this means for government. So about 12 months ago, EY launched a global major research program effectively to study this phenomenon of this hyperconnectivity and what does that mean in the way citizens live, work, eat, play, etc. One of the specific aims of this study was to look at what are the expectations and the emerging expectations, if you will, of citizens as it relates to their interactions with government and services. So just a few insights from this that I think will frame the discussion, and then we'll jump right into it. So number one, there's a lot of progress from governments in the way they have tackled digital transformation and digitization of services. But when compared to what citizens or users do, there's still a lag, right? So if you look at the adoption that you have across a number of private sector, social media services, banking, etc., government is still at 37%, i.e. when we ask, how often do you use internet or digital services to interact with government, it's still significantly lower. There's another interesting statistic which talks about what are your expectations when it comes to improvement that technology will bring across different services that you interact with. So this is a global view, and if you see all the way top, it's the way I bank, the way I shop, the way I work and study, and then government is all the way at the sort of bottom end of that spectrum in terms of how I consume services. Now this is a global view. UAE was one of the countries that was included in the study. And it was interesting that in most of the responses, it was consistent with the global view, but in this one, it was quite different, right? So any guesses on how the UAE performed on this specific question? It's actually all the way at the very top in terms of government services. So this is testament to the fact that the UAE has been focused on government services and improving not just digital, but pretty much in a more holistic manner. But in the UAE, actually, they believe that government services will benefit from significant improvement by application of technology. And that's essentially the reason why I'm here to talk as well. And then the last interesting statistic that I thought would be useful for the framing of this discussion is globally only 57% of the citizens believe that future interactions with public services will be enhanced significantly through the use of technology. But it's inconsistent across the different countries. And here again, if you see UAE is at the top, which is about 77%, strongly believe that technology will play a key role. And I think with this, I'll summarize by saying that everything that's happening around us is actually an opportunity. It is an opportunity to either reset, reimagine, and think big, because the time to transform is essentially now. And with that, let's jump into our discussion for today. I want to start off by asking a question that I want to have each of our panel members reflect on and share their views, right? And we'll start with Majid and then make our way downwards. So obviously, in light of what's happening, with us, how have you in your own organizations been able to adapt to this sort of rapidly changing environment? What are the initiatives that you've launched that has fundamentally improved customer experience? And what have been some of the biggest learnings in this sort of experience? So let's start with you, Majid, and everyone can answer this in the context of what you do within your organizations.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here today. It's an honor to be part of this panel discussion. It's definitely brought a new mindset. We had, honestly, a one-way forward to adapt to the current situation. Speaking of TDRA as an organization, or UAE in general, we are so proud to be in a country that have demonstrated an excellent way of managing the crisis. And we all still remember the national disinfection program, the early warning systems on our phones, and in a very short time. At the same time, there are areas that we need to focus on, because the excellence in delivering or managing the crisis have also increased the expectations of the customers. So if I'll share with you one or two areas maybe I believe are important, and we did spend some time focusing on them during the crisis, and I think we should continue focusing on, is first of all to the first touch points or the frontline staff who are normally interacting with the customers when it comes to service delivery. The pandemic brought new ways of thinking. We have to prepare the front line, not only when it comes to skills, but also to support models. We have to revisit the definition of customer experience and customer journeys, and communicate that while taking into consideration the new expectations. Second point could be also, and this is one of the experiences we went through in TDRA, and all UAE government entities as well, is the implication of remote work on customer service. Remote work is there to stay. This means new hiring processes. This means less geographical restrictions on hiring people. This means new skills. So if I'll select two, I think these are two areas that I think we did okay in them, and we more is needed because it aligns nicely with the digital transformation and the strategic direction in general.
Thank you, Majid, and I'm going to pick up on your last points in a bit as well. Yousuf.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I would like to thank you for having us here. It's actually what happened during this pandemic that if you look at the standards that was established before, because according to our organization, we started very early in 2015 the standards of the ISO 27001 and 20000 for delivering services in a much more trusted way. However, in 2018 in specific, we jumped to the area of the business continuity, the ISO 22301, and that specifically has helped us proactively during the pandemic. And actually, the chairman of Ajman Municipality, His Highness Sheikh Rashid bin Hamid al-Nuaimi, at that time, I remember it in March time frame, 2020 in specific, there were a meeting that he said, please do not panic about this. It's a good practice now to see how can we practice the standards now for business continuity. And be open-minded, because the idea here is that whatever you think that has to be perfect, it's not to be perfect at this time. No one have measured in the world that there will be a risk up to that factor especially in the Middle East. There were issues in the Middle East, political issues, but there is no way that someone have predicted a pandemic up to this level that will impact the area. We have around 160 services that we deliver for the entire city to ensure that these things is working. We need to also to look at what has been digitized and what is not digitized. However, we had a meeting and the management decided that we'll go by agility, building the services, the remaining services with agility, and to accept the situation and move forward with building services at that time. I remember it was around 34 services that was planned for 2022. So you could just think about how things has changed and how the business is flexible to accept this change and how to change their process, the customer journey, the way that we will act in case if there is a payment requirement, all of these things. Whatever was not accepted, we started accepting it at that specific time slot, actually. Alhamdulillah, I think it was a good practice. Now we work remotely. I think yesterday His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid has announced also about we are the #1 for the course to work remotely. We also we practice that in the rental committee, because that is the rental dispute committee also is working remotely currently. All of the judges are working from remote sites. So I think the practice that we learned at that level give us more confidence, and it's an opportunity for us to move forward for the next step, which it is more integrated government. That's what we are lagging in the past. Now I think it is the right time to practice that. And inshallah, with the help of the TDRA, we are working with them. And we would like to thank them, part of this session now, for the support in the UAE Pass, because that specific service has enabled most of the services for us to assure that the identity of the customer is well known for us, so we can move by digital transform everything with agility. That is our practice from Ajman perspective.
Great points, Yousuf. Tarek?
Well, I think what has happened during the pandemic, as you rightly mentioned, it brought out an opportunity. But for us, it was very important that we become closer to our clients than we were ever before, because we could not have this face-to-face interaction. And have meetings, and a lot of our clients were working also remotely. So we wanted to make sure that we keep them more and more engaged, but we wanted to listen to understand what the challenges are. A lot of those were, they were not providing the services in the centers, of course, and a lot of their staff members were at home. How could they empower them? How could they provide the services from a remote point of view? But also at the same time, this pandemic, because a lot of these service centers or the service providers were not fully operational right from the beginning, but that also gave us an opportunity, because it freed some of our R&D people to look at and to hear what we are saying from the field and passing this information on. We had, of course, a product roadmap. Everybody understood what the future kind of almost looked like, what technology they wanted to move forward with, but they didn't understand. People never expected that this technology might be needed now, and we need to formulate a solution today. So a lot of things on the product roadmap that people thought was important got shelved, and we introduced a lot of insightful ideas that we discussed with our clients, and we brought these products into fruition as part of the main product packages, and that was quite very important. So yes, there was a challenge, but it was brought into an opportunity. It gave us an opportunity to improve, to progress, and be able to work with our government clients to provide a better and a seamless customer journey solution.
Thank you, Tarek. Saeed.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I think I'm on the other side of the table, and I think I would like to start with that we've started as an initiative from Dubai Holding since 2013, which some of you know under TCOM Group, which is now called Dubai Holding Asset Management. And since 2013, we've been supporting startups. We've seen the likes of Kareem, we've seen the likes of Souq come into the picture. And we said we wanted to build this platform to prepare these next generations who are coming through with small businesses and make it easy for them. And since then, we've been there for the past 8 years. And looking at what's been happening in the pandemic and all that, for us, it's an opportunity because we've seen governments struggle and in some certain challenges, and our startups were able to address. So we've been preparing this army of startups who are supplying products to the market, but they've been doing it different ways. So when the pandemic hit, or let's say what happened during these challenges, our startups got the opportunity for people to see what they have. So we've done a lot of connections, we've supported, and they got opportunities because now government started to listen and see that, okay, actually this is a great opportunity. Previously, it was like looking for the big companies who are well established and so on. But now even Europe are moving into that direction. And I'm glad that, with the leadership that we have and Sheikh Mohammed pushing innovation and entrepreneurship for us to serve. And we are closer here. So we have something in our backyard to supply the industry with that. So when it comes to transformation into the digital, it's for our startups, it's been great because they have been waiting for these opportunities, and we continue. So I think for us, it's been transformational, and we are happy to support as much as possible the government to move to the next steps.
Amazing. I think those are really good starting points, right? So common themes around agility, acceleration, opportunity, innovation. And so we'll jump into that. So Majid, I'm going to start with you. So obviously you play a very critical role as TDRA, and you help governments and also enterprises drive their digital transformation. So in your view, what do you think governments will need to focus on as they prepare to serve customers in a post-pandemic world?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, the customer centricity, this is clearly mentioned in the strategy, and not only looking at it from outside in, which is the interfaces that we develop to provide services, but also to look at it from inside out, where we as government organizations need to digitize our internal processes. We need to adopt the digital enablers in order to become more prepared to better serve and meet those customer expectations. Today customers, they don't compare governments with only other governments, but they also compare us with the private sector. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure all of us here have heard examples of why don't we get services like Amazon, for instance. So now the way we calculate the challenge and we set the targets also should differ. Private sector is part of the equation, they are partners, and it is important for us also to take their learnings and experiences into account, prepare our teams to adopt those business models and mindset. They come from very competitive industries, and we need to take that into consideration. So these are few important points that I believe are key focus areas for us.
Absolutely. So maybe I'll turn to you, Tarek, just to same question, but a very different perspective, right? So sure. I mean, you serve a lot of governments, but also other clients in other industries as well. So what do you think, in your view, how would governments need to change to respond and better serve customers in this new normal?
Well, there's several ways, but one of them is quite important, is to reassess what has been, what sort of services they have provided, and reassess their performance with the end client and the citizen. The data that they have been collecting is quite valuable over the years, and that needs to definitely be reassessed and looked at. There's a lot of insightful ideas that could come out of it. I think we can work very closely with government organizations in order to pull that out and see and make sense out of it. A lot of the answers are definitely there. Other aspects, I believe that a lot of government organizations can share a bit of that information and data. In order to look at the services and streamline services and find some innovative, qualitative ideas that could not even cost a lot of money, in fact, to make those improvements. So, and they could be quite quick wins and can show a lot of quick results doing that. And after having a look at that as a fresh start, then one could start looking into integration, interaction with various government entities, putting in the right regulations and the policies in order to streamline things. And then we can look at the high tech and high-end innovation that we can actually put in place in order to put some improvement to that. But this data is quite important, and this data is fuel for future technologies or technologies that is being implemented now. Without this data, you can't do much with artificial intelligence per se or other technologies as well.
Thank you. And to just close this off, maybe Saeed, because startups, as you know, thrive around customer centricity. Right? The make or break is around how they better serve customers. From your experience from startups, what can governments learn from startups as it relates to serving customers again in this sort of new normal? Any views on that?
Yeah, so I would, like I said, that the startups are ready to even shift their business model in order to serve the government, because some of the stuff that they're building is already serving some government entities or private entities or normal customers. So now is that a lot of the government entities who come to us, they ask for specifics or challenges. So we are able to take those challenges and throw it in our pool of startups that we have, and then they started to tweak. So we've currently discussed with a lot of private entities and some government in order for us to open these challenges in order for them to adapt and serve these customers. So yeah, so it's been good. The challenge I would say is that as much as we used to think that startups need mentorship and support when it comes to adapting to how government work, but on the other side as well, we need government to be educated. We can't say that, oh, they don't know what they're doing and we don't know. We need education as well when it comes to government as well. So it's a two-way when it comes to that support as well. And I think with that, it will be great for us to see more innovation coming in and support of government and transforming quickly.
Absolutely. So Yousuf, I want to come to you. When you answered your first question, you mentioned something about 160 services and you sort of brought them online at a very small pace. So one, it would be good for you to just talk through a little bit in terms of the journey that you went through, what was sort of some of the biggest challenges and learnings, and more importantly, what's next, right? I mean, you've already done such a great thing in a short amount of time. What's next?
See, it's we looked at it as how can we leverage this negative impact of the pandemic itself, how to leverage it to be an opportunity. That was actually something that we had brainstorming sessions, including the executive management, His Highness, and we looked at it from a different angle. Actually, when you are in the heart of the city management and city, the quality of the services and all of that stuff, you understand that we deliver the environment services, we deliver the food services, we deliver even the graveyard services for I wish everyone to be in a good health, but at the pandemic, all of these things were impacted and disrupted actually, and even the supply chain. You need to clean the entire city. You remember at the time that there were a lockdown. Every government have to work hard to clean up the city and all of that stuff, based on the protocol that was there. And we as an IT also, we react based on that because we need also to build maybe some type of services like inspection, a new inspection services based on the new protocols. New sensing devices has to be there to count some of the things that's maybe demanded by the business based on the protocols. There's different entities that takes care of these things. But whatever is and if you remember, there were every day there were a new announcement during that time, a new change in the policies and procedures and the rules and all of that stuff. We also have to react based on that. So we have taken all of that stuff, and the good thing is that we created a task force team specifically for that area, so they can analyze all of these inputs and they start putting exactly what will be the next action based on that. So we can't say that the pandemic has finished, but we get used to day-to-day how to work onto that area. I think what is the new vision actually currently, and that is currently is based on the discussion between us and all of the agreements between us and all of the government of Ajman in specific, is that we need to get more integrated. And when we say integrated, not integrated in the databases and all of that stuff, no. If someone, we would like to provide a rich user experience, customer experience, where if he requests something and there is a demanded service that need to be accomplished through the process, that has to be added part of that and need to be orchestrated and automated as well. I think that is the level where you, with one single touch of a service, you get the all of the acceptance and approvals in one time. And the other thing is that we'd like to remove the human interaction with the services. And currently, I think we are in around 22% in that. We are using RPA, we are using AI, but there is a target actually for the the parking inspections, for the ticketings and all of that stuff. There is a target for 100% by 2022, by next year actually, to close all of that. There is zero human inspection for the parking. So that is a target that we have put. For the food import and export, there is a new something called the Green Line, which it is currently with one of the big companies, Merckx, and also Hutchison, which it is a very big company which actually operates Ajman ports, that they will build that specific requirement to do the inspection and the lab tests through rapid tests fast for the food import. We are actually on the integration part working now with Dubai Municipality for their digital certification for the food import and export blockchain platform. Currently, this is now, as the BOC is running currently with Ajman Municipality. So the future is digital actually, but the experience is the most important part. How can you get the experience to the customer when you create that digital culture for the city? So you don't look at the people who are just educated, you look at all of the skills. And that is the area where we are trying now to embed that part of the education, because the next people will come after us. Those are going to be much more smarter than us. So we need to leverage that up to that level. So inshallah, by 2020-21, we'll close a big chunk of the strategy. 2022, there will be a very big jump between the governments that will be more integrated services and more orchestrated automation between them for the good of the customer and the best for excellence for the government as well. More dependent systems than humans. That will be better, because what we are looking for to raise the quality of the people to do better jobs than the normal routine jobs. That's what we are looking for.
Well, that's a very ambitious and aspirational vision. Looking forward to that. Maybe I'll use that as a transition to you, Majid. The new UAE government services strategy was announced recently. So can you share a little bit in terms of how you think this strategy will catalyze digital transformation and some key highlight initiatives from this new strategy?
Yes, well, it came at a perfect time. It's a continuation of existing efforts, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the Prime Minister's office and our colleagues there who are working hard to support the transformation. The focus areas of the strategy is basically very clear: customer first and government optimization. There are clear definitions. There is a promise of the government. There is targets that are laid clearly for all government entities. It's meant to unify the efforts and to make us all work in clear consistency towards meeting those two main components: customer first and government optimization. And speaking of, there are many initiatives, but two of them that I can recall now is the Unified Digital Platform is one of the initiatives that we in TDRA, in collaboration with many government entities, are working on. It's from the name as the name implies, it's a single one-stop shop window for customers to transact with government. Conceptually, this is not new. What we're looking at in this initiative is to create this seamless experience, exactly like the way a customer interacts with any retail business, regardless of which government entity is providing the service, be it federal, be it local, or even the next step, be it private. Of course, this is a cascaded effort because there are other enablers that made us more ready to provide such platforms. And my colleague Yousuf here, and I appreciate your comment. It is actually a national effort to deliver the national identity or digital identity UAE pass that made such initiatives, let's say, closer to delivering them to the citizens. A second initiative that I believe is also important is the Digital Academy. We touched on some important points when it comes to this. The key, it is today, the initiative is existing, it's ongoing through non-stop developments. The key message here is important for us to make sure the strategy is understood in a very unified manner from the top leaders, which is already there, all the way to the frontline staff. And it is not abnormal to face situations where the understanding of the strategy on a very high level of the hierarchy is a little bit different than it is on the frontliners. So the academy comes into play. We do programs for even the public. We want to increase the electronic and digital participation, eventually using the government digital services. We have programs also for employees. And I'm happy to share with you that this week, and also again thanks to the Prime Minister's office, there is a program on digital service design going on in collaboration between PMO and TDRA Virtual Academy. It's meant to prepare the government employees to understand the definition of a digital service and how to prepare in order to consider digital by default. It also targets future manpower. We spoke about the students and to increase their appetite and interest in ICT in general through innovation camps or programs that are supporting job seekers. These are two key initiatives from a long list of other initiatives, but I believe it's good to share them in this arena.
Absolutely, and thank you for that, Majid. And it sets the right foundations as well for the digital transformation. I'm going to switch gears. I think something you mentioned was it's not just about looking at other governments and their experiences, but also looking at the best experience from a private sector perspective. So I want to switch to Tarek and then Saeed. If you look at best practices outside of government, right, could be any sector, what can governments learn from such practices to accelerate and maybe even leapfrog sort of the digital transformation? It would be useful if you can share at least one, it could be a personal experience in the UAE outside of a non-government sort of service that really sort of exceeded your expectations, but a broader view around what can governments learn from other sectors.
Well, I believe in the UAE, the government services have taken great strides over the past 15 years, I would say, and they've gone through many stages of leaping forward and taking up the challenges and improving on the experiences, of course. There could, and I think the leadership did, and the vision of the UAE as well, they did bring out a couple of statements that always go up in my mind about government services being close to their customers, like the hospitality industry, and being open 24 hours like the airline, of course. But I think a little bit more on the empowerment side, on individuals within the government. I would say, like if you look at organizations like the Ritz-Carlton hotels, where people from the concierge all the way up to the managers have a window of movement in which they can go beyond that. And I believe those programs that they rightly mentioned concerning the trainings and going forward, and what the next generation government staff will look like, and what they need to do. And I think that these are quite thought of, where challenges or problems or whatever could be solved fairly quickly in order to exceed expectations with clients.
Thank you, Tarek. Saeed?
Yeah, I would say from my side, because I've seen models that worked outside UAE, specifically US and Europe, that the mindset of the entities are on a hunt for good ideas and good innovative products. This is what I would like to see in the future, is that every single employee in an entity is hunting for good ideas and innovative ideas. And this is how we work collectively. I've seen, and this is something Majid touched up on, is from top to bottom, people need to be educated in why they're actually doing innovation and why, from strategy, from His Highness bottom down. I've met a lot of people that a strategy has come out, but in the middle it breaks down because people don't understand it. Because when we bring startups on the table to face government, some of the government employees think they're doing them a favor, right? Even when it comes to procurement or so on, you're not doing them a favor. They actually have real products that will actually bring innovation. This is why, I've sent startups outside to go and participate in big events. They got support outside, but here it was that kind of struggle when it comes to them. Why? Because over there, let's say in each government entity or a private entity, they have this innovation entity or business unit that is actually on a hunt for new ideas, no project, and also educating the internal and external. So, like, alhamdulillah, now we've seen a lot of entities have these centers, but we want to support from our side how we can support them with startups and how they transform it into their organizations as well.
Excellent. I'll actually stay with you because you've mentioned this a couple of times in terms of the critical role that startups can play in this sort of journey, right? So, and you've touched upon some of this, but it'd be useful to understand that a bit more. So one, what do you think governments need to change to be able to tap into the potential and the innovation potential that startups can bring to the table? And if you can share a couple of examples of how that's sort of working, may not be in a large scale, but even in a small pilot form, that would be really useful.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be honest, guys, because one of the startups is sometimes a struggle for us to transform that. But I would like to bring examples. For example, Startup Hub in London. They want to partner with Boeing. The product was they're gonna give 20 million to Startup Hub to bring out a product. What is the product? The product is startups in the aviation sector. So here, London Startup Hub will take the money, they will invest in startups, they will keep the money, and these guys will have a product. The product is the aviation startups. So they're bringing more aviation startups into the sector. Same thing that we want to see. It's not just because His Highness is pushing this initiative or this is a marketing way of doing things. No, actually there's so much innovation that is actually coming out of these startups that we're missing out on. And what they end up doing is they end up leaving or going to another entities that are opening up. So alhamdulillah, there are a lot of initiatives. You can see this amazing place, but we are here, we are ready to supply with more startups to support. And this is why I say it's not a one way. Previously, in my previous job was training these startups to go and build businesses. Now, in Dubai Holding and TCOM and N5, what we're doing is we're doing it from the other side. We're going into our Dubai Holding entities to speak to the CEOs and say that these are the solutions that we have internally. Look at them, invest in them, and we trying to connect. So previously was the education from idea to product and then going to the market, but now we're doing it the other way, from the bigger company, private company, government company coming down, so they can all meet together. So there are a lot of activities that we're doing thanks to the government of UAE of supporting really entrepreneurship. And now, as you can see, that we have a Minister of State of Entrepreneurship that is really focused on, because this is a big pillar for us to work with. So hopefully things will, things are improving, not hopefully, but things are improving. But of course, we always want to see more activities.
Tarek, I'll come to you now. So At the answer to your first question, you talked about product roadmap and how you had to sort of some things got deprioritized and then you sort of focused on that. It would be really useful to get some examples of some innovations that you've launched, let's say in the last sort of 12 to 16 months that has helped either governments or other organizations in other sectors radically improve their sort of customer experience.
So it's quite important that whatever changes that have happened in the last year or 18 months are part of also the customer journey. So if we bring in this innovation, they need to be measured as well. So part of that is it was quite important that for social distancing aspects, you needed to add and integrate more appointment systems, make sure that you bring in the video calling, video conferencing aspect into that. But when people do the appointment and get into that, into the video conferencing, you need to measure that service, how long it's taking, what sort of services they have been provided, and were they satisfied or not satisfied, and how can we improve that aspect of it. And was it seamless, or were there delays in connectivity and people being able or understanding, was it simple enough to actually do? So we introduced all of that. So a lot of it had to do with a lot of integration into various platforms because people were picking and choosing. Myself, I use about 4, I think, with my clients, so maybe 5. I lost tracks, but we adapt, and this is the new norm. At the same time, we started using quick solutions that also the clients are prefer to use. Our clients, or our collective clients with the government as well, they like to use WhatsApp. They would like to use the various kind of social, platforms, and we integrated into that, and we enabled that, and people can get services out of those, and people are comfortable with it. They don't want to lift up the phone. They just want to text, and you get your answers, and all of that sort of stuff. Other aspects is I believe I want to add into the entrepreneurial aspect, because we're not limiting it. Especially me, I'm not limiting it in the organization to just talk to our product people and innovation. We're talking to a lot of people and within the market with a lot of young people that I believe can provide a lot of value. They understand things more, and we are a young society here. A lot of the demographics is under a certain age, so we need to serve them. So it's quite important that we kind of crowdsourcing a call out and get some ideas. How can we improve that? And I think governments can benefit from that, but they have them ready available here, where people can provide that, and that is quite important. And we have gotten some very insightful solutions where we just plug them in, and quite fast. And these people are quite more agile and faster and more flexible. They can come in and do things quite fast, while our product guys need to see how they're going to fit it in and when, put it in the calendar and all of that. But they kind of are eager to do it quite fast, and we were quite successful in piloting it, but also implementing it in a few sites.
Can I just add something to what he said? And this is very important point that you touch up on. Previously, some entities will go and try to build the whole thing themselves, right? Now you have startups who are coming in, and these guys are not kids. They are actually working professionals. They're really good at what they do. So here, instead of you going and reinventing the wheel and opening this big entity, these startups can come in just for small investment or support, that they come in and they roll, and they are our area of expertise, right? So we have a startup, it's called Dirk, that is working with TDRA, RTA, and Smart Dubai. That they came from US and they started business with us and so on. And what they're doing is using AI. They're solving this traffic problem and integrating all the transportation system together. These guys are MIT grads, have around 28 patents, working with the Los Angeles transportation system, and they also work with the Dubai government, right? So we have so many examples that these guys are just coming in because they're working professionals. They know what they do. They specialize in one thing, instead of 100 things. So they know, so here it's easier to bring in innovation and integrate quickly. So the easiest thing that to do is either give them the business or invest in them. So a lot of businesses try to bring them in and support them, or making them part of that organization as well. So they can hit the ground running, and you don't need to build a team around it. You already have a team that is ready. So yeah, that's a very important topic.
Absolutely, very critical. So maybe I just sort of pick that up and get some views from Yousuf, and then sort of Majid is, so private sector participation, startups is one component, but across the board, getting private sector more and more involved is going to be critical to drive the innovation, right? So in your view, how well is government doing that today? And more importantly, if there's room to do better, then what are some of those things that governments will need to focus on?
There were a question in my mind that we did not discuss actually. How did we, there is a question that came to us, how do we know that we are in recovery? Because we run, it's a government, and the entire ecosystem is depending on us. So when you talk about the food industry, they depend on us and our approvals and our ports and our services. The real estate industry by itself, it was under a huge attack during that time. So what to do and what type of acts and regulations has to change and all of that stuff, and based on what we are going to take these decisions. And this is where the predictive analysis of the data that we have in our hand helped us at that time to improve the decision makers. So I'll give you an example in the attestation services, because we conduct the attestation service for every contract in the city. Based on the data that we have, historical data, we know that how many contracts will expire during the pandemic. So we predict that there will be shops that will not be able, a commercial license will not be renewed. Based on that, contracts will not be renewed. So kind of discussing that with the economic department about that, and find a way and regulations to improve that area, because we don't want to lose the ecosystem also as well. You lose the economical license, you lose at the same time the real estate industry, the impact will come at that level. How, the other side is that when we are going to recover. That was a question actually. So we had to, I just want to share with the people from the side of the consultancy. We've been actually in that area where we started doing kind of building some predictive analysis to see exactly when is the time that we can feel that the economy will recover in the real estate industry in specific. Because the contribution from the income that we spend again to the infrastructure, we spend again to the salaries and all of that stuff comes also as a cycle. That's a cycle between the government and the business. So we had to put a predictive analysis and to give some examples to the management. Based on that, there were 2 circulars regulations that has happened in 2020 based on our predictive analysis. Now, what was the challenge at that time is not just the predictive analysis, is that for other government was the challenge. I can see it based on my experience, because so many governments at that time, they designed their services for the customer to be served through a business center. So they have a digital transformation, but it is based on someone to visit. So it was based on the customer journey, a visit. I think what has helped us at that time, because the vision in 2013 is that we build services with 0 visit. How long it will take, it doesn't make sense to us, no problem. But we need to build that a service does not depend on someone else to do a data entry for you. At the time of the pandemic, those who built their services based on this type of vision, I think they survived. They survived big time. But those who have been depending on business centers, they were calling, how did you do it? And we need your help in that area. We helped several governments at that time to find a way to get around it. The lockdown will finish, but people require services. And I think lots of you knows which services. I don't want to point, but there is some services where very critical for people, that where some regulations came to say that we'll give you extended time. You can renew without coming back. You don't need to check. You don't need to do all of that stuff. As long as there is no the airline industry is off, you're still within the country, so we can control that. But if you look at it from this perspective, that was the challenge. The challenge is that you didn't do a good study in the past as a research internally, and did not conduct a consultancy services internally within your organization for this type of services to become more easy. You were always thinking to outsource this to someone else outside, and at the time that the pandemic happened, everything stopped and everything went down. And I think this thing has changed. I think since last year, there were a very big jump in all of the government entities within all of the Emirates, I think. Now, currently, this is a good sign that we are going to be in a lead for the Middle East itself, and maybe in the world also. So consuming these services in the future will be not based on where is your location, because that location is no more now. We are virtually delivering all of that stuff, and hopefully that by end of this year and next year, I think Dubai have already taken an initiative for zero paper and all of that stuff. So that's a value also as well.
Yeah. Maybe a closing question that I'll get each of you to share your views on, which is looking, as you rightly said, Yousuf, into the future, right? So what's your outlook for the future? Expectations, predictions, and hopes essentially for future of digital services and experiences. Majid, I can start with you, and then we make our way down.
Right. So I like the discussion on the startups, and I just allow
Please.
me to share a comment on that. If we look back in UAE's history, the mindset of startup is part of UAE's DNA. And this country started before even it became united in late 60s. Resources were limited, and they were limited for a long time. People were skilled in maybe 2 or 3 specific areas, hands-on skills, either in the being fishermen or in the trade. And we had a clear vision, 1971, and persistence, and not many options on the table for us to choose from. And moving fast forward, now you see the result of having this DNA built in the nation. Now, from a government perspective, we are one of the first governments in the world to proudly announce a year of innovation and start embedding this concept across all federal entities. In TDRA, we had our Center of Digital Innovation since 2013. The point Saeed mentioned here about them being on the other side of the table, sitting with the government, I think this is key. Governments have problems, they want them solved. Maybe we are not only interested in technologies, but we are interested in technologies with a purpose to solve a problem, for a customer's first focus area, or government optimization. And I think that's an excellent way of looking at the situation. We have received requests from other nations to export some of the innovative projects and ideas that were done in UAE abroad. So this is a plus. And I'd like to wrap up with back to your point on future readiness. I think when it comes to being future relevant and future proof, creativity and innovation are key skills that are needed. We all hear about robots replacing people and all of that, but when it comes to being creative and being innovative and solving the right problems and asking the right questions, this is key. Having critical thinkers and problem solvers, as you touched on as well. We need people to understand the right problems and ask the right questions. And leadership. Leadership, Sheikh Mohammed clearly told us, you don't need to be on the top position to be a leader. Everybody can be a leader. When I deliver the message that is clearly mentioned in the digital services strategy to the people I work with, this is an act of leadership. This is me delivering the message to everybody. This is me making sure to create that link between top to the frontliner. So these are a couple of things I wanted to touch on.
Thank you, Majid. Yousuf, closing comments?
Yeah, Mr. Majid actually, he has a good vision in that area. But my point is that the future is to do with the government services, is to stream these services and make them all. There is no government entity currently has a competitor as of today. The service that they deliver, no one else is delivering. And I think this will change. This will not continue. We'll be in a position after maybe 3, 4, 5 years, maybe, I think, that the government will be only putting regulations. And these things will go to the business and the startups as well to cover some of these things, because I think it's more of making the future more dynamic, not to be as static as we look at it, because we've been in the government now 30 years, so I know exactly, yes, today is better than 30 years back, for sure. There is a very big difference. And there is no way that I can, if someone came from graveyards by any means, they will say that what is happening here, which I'm in the heaven, or where is exactly this is the city, because they remember something old, totally different vision. But I think the future is more dynamic services, more of government being in the governance level, not in the execution of building, more in the accepting the innovation from the platforms that they will build internally within the country, and maybe linking that or bridging that, because the difference is that if you are just close to yourself, you will not develop anything. You need also to bridge with other sister cities or sister countries, so you can see exactly what is good in their side, you bring it here. And that's the innovation, actually, is to accept and these things and to start implementing it. Hopefully by accepting the changes and moving forward with delegating some of these current government operations to the private sector, we'll get a better services in the future that can fit to our expectation and beyond our expectation, inshallah.
Tarek?
Oh, that is truly amazing, and this is something that really I'm always amazed with the UAE. While being here for about 20 years now, the continuous change, the continuous improvements, the continuous progress. And I believe it's most important is the value in all of this is in the vision and the leadership, and they're consistently pushing towards this big progress. The people, is a big asset towards progressing and leading and providing the best governmental services and continually improving them, looking at things in a different point of view. Moving it away from no competition to let's take it out and let's put in the regulations and the policies. This is definitely music to my ears and everybody's ears going forward. And of course, if I want to add a few things on top of that is definitely, of course, the regulations, as you rightly mentioned, and the technology. We are, the cloud. Taking things to the cloud, multi-tenant systems, because reducing cost and improving efficiency, training people and the resources, utilizing all kinds of different ideas and manpower in order to provide more and more insightful solutions, not about copying and removing something from somewhere and bringing it in. All situations change, and the situation, and as we can see, things change all the time. And every single situation changes is different, and we need more and more insightful ideas to have this improved customer experience. The other aspects is the many advanced technologies like AI, utilizing the data and information, and I think UAE is well underway with this infrastructure that they have been investing in a big way, and I don't think there's any other country that has done things in such a fast pace throughout this period of time. So there is a lot of, and the collaboration with the public as well as the private sector put them well underway for that. Of course, technologies like 5G and having these services being provided on different platforms the way the end customer would like them to have them at any time, making sure that they do work with that, because this will leapfrog would give it a big leap towards providing a faster, more seamless and easy and simple services, and it becomes something that they don't have to think about the clients or the citizens and worry about getting services. It becomes quite easy to do, and that's how I see it here at the UAE.
Thank you, Tarek. Saeed?
Yeah, I would say that I think every one of us has a role to play when it comes to where we're sitting, when it comes to either government, private, or even startups. And for me personally, I've started as a government employee, and then I moved into the startup world to build my own startup. And then I saw the gap where the startups also need help. This is why I went and I moved into supporting more startups. So my role currently is to make sure that we are supplying the industry with quality startups. So as much as I'm doing it here, the other side, I'm sure people from the government entity are also working very hard, of course, with the support of our leadership. So I think the future is bright. Things are moving along. We have a great minister who understands what's going on, tackling the real problems that we have. So one of the Majlis, Ramadan Majlis, he was involved in, he said that when it comes to startups and investment, we don't want to spend time doing that, because that will grow organically. The investors will come. Us as government will focus on policies, right, and other things that will help the startup, because some things you don't need to grow yourself. You don't need to pump in money. It will come naturally. So, I think our leadership are selecting the right people for the right positions in order for us to move forward. And from my side and our organization, will continue to pump in quality startups coming in the future, inshallah.
Thank you, Saeed. I think there's some fantastic closing comments, not much more for me to say other than going back to the question we started with today, which is, are governments ready to thrive in the new normal? And I think from everything that we've heard over the last 60 minutes, I think it's safe to say that governments are ready with the right vision, the right leadership, the right public-private partnerships as well. So thank you to our panelists for taking the time today and sharing their perspectives and insights. And thank you for joining us for this special edition of GX Customer Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.